in 2019 for something completely different. So that means he had due process. No, that would be the dumbest thing anyone ever could say. What's up, Chuck? How old are you?
Do what now?
How old are you?
I'm 58.
All right. And do you agree that deporting Kilmar Brego Garcia was illegal per his withholding of removal to El Salvador?
Nope.
Okay. The Supreme Court.
Because no, wait a minute. Let me say my reason.
Okay. Wait. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. You're
Yeah,
disagreeing.
I know what y'all are trying to say, because he didn't get due process and he wasn't supposed to go back to El Salvador. Blah 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 blah.
I just want to confirm that you disagree with the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Okay. And can you cite me the legal basis for the disagreement?
Because if you will notice in that picture with the Maryland senator, governor, or whatever, have you paid attention to that picture where they're sitting at the table and shaking hands? Have you paid attention to that picture? Hello?
I'm listening.
Have you paid attention to that picture?
Yeah.
Okay, look on his hand.
Mm-hmm.
What does it say on his hand?
It doesn't matter what it says on the hand.
It says, no, wait a minute. You're not letting me get my point across to you.
You just asked me a question.
It says MS-13.
It doesn't actually.
MS-13 is a terrorist organization now.
It doesn't say MS-13 on its hands.
Yes, it does. I've seen it. I've looked at it. I blowed it up. If you're saying it doesn't say that, then prove me wrong. Blow up the picture and send it and show him and tell me what it says.
You would have to prove your claim. I can't disprove a negative, right? But here's the thing. When we look at the reasons for his alleged gang affiliation, when you look at his gang sheet that was produced by the police department that arrested him, tattoos aren't on that list.
I'm not talking about the tattoos that were on that list.
No tattoos.
I'm talking about the actual tattoo that's in the picture when he's standing there with the Maryland senator or congressman or whatever the fuck he was.
There are no tattoos. There's no MS-13 on his hand.
Yes, there is. The picture is. You can look at it and see. You're not looking at it where they're shaking hands, standing there in the room, and he's
fully looking at it. There is no MS-13 on his hands.
Okay, what is on his fingers then?
I don't really care what's on his fingers.
What? Oh, wait a minute. What is on his fingers? You're saying it ain't MS-13, but you can't tell me what it is.
Correct. Hence why he's never been convicted of gang affiliation, because there is no gang affiliation presented.
He has been convicted of gang affiliation.
Incorrect. He has no criminal record.
Two courts said he was.
No, they didn't actually.
That's why they were supposed to not send him back to El Salvador, because of a rival gang.
No, incorrect.
Now, if you are not, yes, it is.
No,
yes,
Chuck, hold on, Chuck. Chuck.
Then,
you didn't read the court documents, Chuck. And
then why was he requested to not be sent back to El Salvador?
So what happened, and if you look at the court documents, this is all in the court documents in his 2019 immigration case. His mother owned a bakery in El Salvador that was being shaken down by El Salvadorian gangs for money. They were shaking them down for protection money. His mother didn't want to keep paying, so the gang said, if you'd stop paying, we're going after your children. Him being one of those children, he was 16 at the time. The gang said, if you stop paying us, we're either going to force your son to be a part of our gang or we're going to kill him. What happened was his mother said, well, I don't want anything to happen to my children. So she sent her children out of the country. And this was all that validified by a judge in his 2019 immigration case. And if you look at the withholding of removal,
he does not.
Hold on. If you look at the withholding of removal, the judge affirms that this is a legitimate reason and that he had legitimate fears to go back to the country. This is all in the court documents.
Because of a rival gang.
Not a rival gang, just a gang to begin with that wanted to harm him. He didn't want to be in the gang, so he left.
Gang would not harm you if he was not a rival to them.
Incorrect. Gangs shake down businesses for protection money all the time. That's what was happening. His mother's business was being targeted for protection money by a gang, And
Well,
she did
then
not want her son to get hurt
why didn't Mama and Daddy come?
because
If
the
they were,
gang wasn't threatening mom and dad with violence. They
oh,
were
but
threatening the
it
son.
was threatening their sons
Yes, this has
because
all
the
been
oldest one.
confirmed by the
So
courts.
Mom and Daddy can live there, and nobody bother them. They won't be
Correct.
shut down.
That's
They won't
exactly
do
what
nothing.
happened. Yes.
That right there, if you believe in that, you're believing some of the biggest bullshit you've ever seen.
Sure. Provide evidence
If a
to the
gang is going
provide
to shake,
opposing
if a
evidence.
gang is going to shake somebody down for money, they're going to shake them down. If they're wanting money, they're going to shake them down, whether Pepe,
Provide
Limpo,
opposing
or
evidence
whatever.
then. Provide opposing
Okay,
evidence.
you provide the evidence other than a piece of paper of what he said,
The evidence is the court documents that
of what
affirmed
he
him.
said.
Yeah, the evidence is the court documents.
That's what he said. You have no proof.
Or I don't have to confirm this. The court confirmed it, and the court affirmed that he would be at risk if he goes back to El Salvador. That's why they placed a legal withholding of removal on him. Did the courts place a withholding of removal to El Salvador on this man? Yes or no?
Yeah, until he was proven a member of MS.
Wasn't proven. And you know how we know he wasn't proven? When you go to the Supreme Court documents.
They have proved that because he had gang ties. Because
no, they didn't. Here, hold on. Here we go. Let's go to the Supreme Court document. Here we go. I'm going to read you what the Supreme Court says. They said, to this day, the government, that would be the U.S. government, has cited no basis in law for his warrantless arrest, his removal to El Salvador, or his confinement in a Salvadoran prison, nor could it. They said not only could they not provide any basis in law, there was no basis in law, which means, because if he was a gang member, there would be a legal basis to keep him removed and to get him out, but there was none. This was all the Trump administration, specifically Kristi Noem, could have provided the Supreme Court with any evidence that he was a part of a gang. They did not. The only argument they made, which I will show you here, which is on this page here, the government's only argument. So this is the third highlighted section, okay? The government now requests an order from this court permitting it to leave Abrego Garcia, a husband and father without a criminal record. So the Supreme Court is affirming that this man has no criminal record in a Salvadoran prison for no reason recognized by the law. The only argument the U.S. government has made in support of its request is that the United States courts can't grant relief once a deportee crosses the border. And that, the Supreme Court affirms, is plainly wrong. And you can see it's wrong based on legal precedent set in Rumsfeld v. Padilla and Boumediene v. Bush. Both of those show the legal basis.
And say no criminal acts. When you enter a country illegal is a criminal act.
It's actually a civil offense.
No, it can also be criminal.
Yes, but his entering of the country.
Wait a minute. I was quiet and let you speak.
Go ahead.
Now, see, y'all are reading all this, and y'all going by this due process of law and all this stuff, and y'all are reading the very first few lines, and that's y'all's case. But just like his deportation case, it says he wasn't granted due process. If you read down in through there, when you ask it that, it says there are exceptions to this rule. So yes, where he can be deported without a due process.
It does not say that anywhere in the Supreme Court document.
It's in the Constitution, dude.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Google it. Have you got Google?
Sure. Which amendment do you want me to look at? The 14th?
Okay.
I have the 14th pulled up right now.
Google it where it says
due process.
Google it where it says, can an illegal alien be removed from the country without due process?
It says that nowhere in the Constitution, friend.
Now read down. Keep reading down. Keep scrolling down.
I have the entirety of the 14th Amendment up, which is the due process amendment. Nowhere in the 14th Amendment does it say that you can be removed if you're an illegal without due process. It actually says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protections of the law. That's actually what the Constitution says. It says that any person in the U.S.'s jurisdiction is required due process. Any person. Every person we've deported without due process has been a violation of the 14th Amendment. He's teacupping. I saw someone mention the Alien Enemies Act. It wouldn't apply in this case. Hence why the U.S. government did not use it in their defense to the Supreme Court, because they know it does not apply in this case. Because we are not at war with El Salvador. It is not a enemy, foreign nation, or government, which is what the Alien Enemies Act talks about. I can read the Aliens Enemy Act out loud, if you'd like. Whenever there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the against the United States by any foreign nation or government, this would not apply. And hence why the Supreme Court has put a pause on the Alien Enemies Act as of 2 days ago, because they recognize that it's not applying to the bulk of people Trump is removing. What do you want? What's up? So yeah, I don't know how many times, I don't know if Chuck is coming back, but it ain't looking good for Chuck. What do you want?
After shower, can we have the popsicles?
Are you taking a bath now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have one after your bath, yeah.
I get to one after
Go ahead.
my bath.
He's definitely trying to run.
No. Put on my service.
Chuck, it doesn't look like Chuck's coming back, guys. It looks like Chuck ran. Should we add 16 to the can't read counter? I'll add 16 because Chuck clearly can't read. If who's not in the box?
No, I'm here. I'm still trying to look something up.
Okay, Chuck, take all the time you need, I guess. Yo, Jeff, you want to come through? Or Hog, if either of you want to come up, feel free. I'm looking in the viewer list. If Jeff or Hog want to come up, feel free. Makeout doesn't even have... No, Katie went home today. I'm sad. Makeout doesn't even have guest request access, so all they can do is chirp. Yeah, I'm just babysitting for Jones because him and No Rads are out of town. So I'm watching the kids. Well, they're hanging out with my mom right now. We're gonna keep waiting. We're gonna keep waiting for Chuck. I believe in Chuck. I believe he can find what he's looking for. What happened to your last setup? What do you mean? Oh, let me switch it back. Y'all think little voices are cute. I think they're annoying. Did anybody watch I don't know if it's still going, the Parker Dean thing. I tuned in when they were doing an abortion debate, and I was a little disappointed how few of the ladies got to speak. The femme voices. I was a little upset about that.
Okay, it actually says.
Okay.
Okay.
We can't hear you when you're off the app, though, Chuck.
I can't tell you what it says.
You just gotta memorize it and say, well, anytime you click off the app, we won't hear you. You can hear us, but we
Okay.
can't hear you.
Let me see. Hang on. If you read on down through there, it says expectations and caravans. Expectations and caravans under the due process points that everybody's trying to make out the 14th Amendment. Now, anybody can twist them in any way they want to.
I'm sorry, just confirming. You said it says exceptions
Yes.
in the Constitution. Because I read the 14th Amendment, and there were no exceptions there, friend. Oh, I'm getting a kid a popsicle. There you go.
Bless me.
Well, like I said, pull up where it says the rights of the 14th and 15th due process rule, and then scroll down. And as you keep scrolling down, it will say exceptions and crevices. But here's the point. All of y'all that's saying, oh, he's such a good guy, he's a great guy, this and that, you need to scroll down because you're not scrolling far enough to read this. And it goes by certain elements of whatever it was. Now, we can sit here and argue that he was one or wasn't one, but he got picked up on one, and it's known by association. And I mean, I'm telling you, if you're hanging out with two people, if you're standing outside a bank and they walk in there and rob it and come back out and stand out there with you, you're going to be suspected of bank robbery too.
So, Chuck, in America, let me ask you a question. In America, are you innocent until proven guilty or guilty until proven innocent?
You're guilty by association, dude. And I've been in jail. I know how this shit works.
Okay,
So
then let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a
don't-
really important question. Is Donald Trump a child sex trafficker?
I have no idea. I ain't never seen him with no children.
Yeah, but he was with Jeffrey Epstein, who was convicted of child sex trafficking.
Well, so
is he guilty by association?
So was Bill Clinton.
Yeah, sure, we can ask all of them. Is Donald Trump and Bill Clinton child sex traffickers?
Associate in that realm of people.
Are they child sex traffickers?
There has been no claim. As you're sitting here saying for this El Salvadorian, there has been no proof of Bill Clinton or Trump being pedophiles.
You said, well, now, I would argue there is. I would argue there is proof.
No, wait a minute. You want to flip the script. You want to flip the script.
You said that people are guilty by association. You said that, not me. I didn't say that. I didn't say that people are guilty by association, Chuck. That was your argument.
He was standing there when he got arrested with two other gang members.
If I'm standing next to two gang members, does that mean I'm in a gang, or that I was just standing next to two gang members?
If you got on gang clothing, yeah, it pretty much means you are.
A Chicago Bulls hat is gang clothing?
Why would you have on a shirt that says "Hear no evil, see no evil" if you wasn't? Now, come on, dude. I mean, that's just
if I'm wearing a shirt with like Biggie Smalls on it, right? Does that mean I only listen to Biggie Smalls? Could that mean that could I even be wearing that shirt and I've never listened to a Notorious B.I.G. album?
See, there you go, y'all. That's what I love about all this on this. When people start throwing this stuff back to y'all get so offensive.
Who's offended? What are you talking about?
Yeah, because you want to go off on Biggie Smalls and Bill Clinton and Trump and all this. But the bottom line is, I'm throwing the stuff. I'm showing you and
Why
telling you the
was he
stuff that
never
you need.
convicted of gang affiliation? Why was he never convicted of gang-related activity?
He was
No, he
convicted of
wasn't.
it. He was a known associate of
No,
it.
he wasn't.
That's the
He
reason why
has
he done
no
had a
criminal.
deport.
He has
He done had
zero
a
criminal
deportation.
associations. Zero.
He done had a deportation order against him.
That
He done had
him
a
having a deportation order doesn't prove he. Again, the Supreme Court, when looking at all the evidence, showed without a shadow of a doubt that he had zero criminal history. Zero.
but
None.
he had a deportation order against him. Did he not?
That doesn't mean anything. It just
Did
means
he
that
not?
it just
Okay.
means that the
So here's the
DHS
thing.
wanted to
Here's
deport
the
him.
thing. Here's the
No, but
thing.
didn't
It
have a
doesn't.
deportation
It
order.
doesn't. It does. Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Doesn't. It does. Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
You just said it a while ago. He had a deportation order against him, but he could
No,
not
he
be
had a
sent.
withholding of removal, which is an order passed by an immigration court that says he can't be, he legally cannot be deported to El Salvador. That's what a withholding of removal is. It's saying that he cannot be removed.
Okay, but here's the thing: they didn't. Biden didn't remove nobody. Okay.
What are you talking? We're not talking about Biden. We're talking about this man right now in Trump.
Yeah, I know, but see, it's what I'm saying. When he was, when all that was going on, they wasn't deporting nobody. Now it's just come up when Trump deports people. Now it's a bad thing. When Obama deported
people.
people.
Hold on, let me respond to this. Do you notice that I'm not talking about like almost anyone else that Donald Trump deported? There are people that Donald Trump has deported that I feel like they did break the law. They do deserve to be deported per the law in our country. This is not one of those cases. This is someone with zero criminal history. This is someone who had an order from the courts that said he cannot be removed to El Salvador. His 14th Amendment rights were violated. And the Supreme Court has asserted that he needs to be brought back to this country and given due process. If Donald Trump's administration wants to send him to El Salvador, they need to legally appeal and revoke his withholding of removal. But they did not do this.
So you're going to bring him back and ship him back.
You need to like swipe out to your home screen and back into the app if you're getting the echo.
You want them to bring him back so they can send him back.
If they want to deport him to El Salvador.
Hold on. If they brought him back and then deported him back, would that make you happy?
If they brought him back and a court of law determined that he should no longer have a withholding of removal, then I believe they can send him to El Salvador. I don't believe they can send him to a prison because he didn't do any crime, but I believe that if they can revoke his withholding of removal to El Salvador, then they would have the legal right to send him to El Salvador. But they did not do that. They broke his constitutional right for due process and sent him to prison without any sort of evidence to show that he was a criminal, that he was, they've showed no evidence to the courts that he was in a gang. They've shown none of that.
Okay, if you go to another country, do you have any rights?
Yeah, depending on those countries' rules, yes.
So you can go anywhere in the world and you have rights. They're supposed to protect you.
After your shower. It would depend on the country's rules. And our rules in our country is that any person who is in our country's jurisdiction has the right to due process. It doesn't matter if they're a citizen.
With the exceptions. And like I say, all of y'all are on here talking about the 14th and 5th Amendment and due process and stuff. And y'all getting the first few paragraphs down right, I will guarantee you that. But y'all are not scrolling down far enough and clicking on all the links because, you know, it's like any law. It's like any law or any rule they've ever made up. It's got subparticle B, subparticle C.
The 14th Amendment only has 5 sections, friend.
No, dude, read down through your due process thing.
I have.
And there's going to be amendments. See, Chuck,
who in our country interprets the amendments so that we know whether or not something is constitutional or not? Who does that?
The government does, and that's what I'm telling you.
No, specifically which part of the government? There is only one part of the government There is only one body in the U.S. government that interprets constitutional law, and that would be the Supreme Court. They are the full stop. They are the determining.
That's exactly right. And
the
that's why
Supreme
I said,
Court says very specifically, they said that his right to due process was violated. So they interpreted the 14th Amendment. They looked at everything that you're saying and they said, no, this person did not meet any of these quote unquote exceptions, and he should not have exceptions, and he should not have been falsely arrested, falsely deported, and falsely detained in a prison without having his due process met.
he had his due process, man.
He did not. Hey, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you right? So let's say I go to court for the stealing of bread and found innocent. And then 10 years later, I am arrested for stealing a pack of batteries. Can the government throw me in jail and say, well, he went to court back 10 years ago when he stole the bread, so he had his due process? Or when it comes to due process, do you have to do it for everything that you may do in the courts?
Depends on how it was wrote up.
It doesn't depend on how it's wrote up. You can't be charged.
They can bring up charges from years ago. Because like I said, I done been there, done that. I know what they do.
That's double jeopardy, friend. They can't actually do that.
If that's in your plea deal when you signed out, yes, they can.
No, that's double jeopardy.
No, it cannot.
Yes, no, that's double jeopardy.
No, it cannot.
Yes,
if you plea deal, okay.
You cannot prosecute someone multiple times for the same offense.
If you sign the piece of papers that you had
same offense.
If you sign the piece of papers that you have to sign when you're going to court and settling all your court cases, if I do this again, if I get caught for stealing again, they can bring up the previous charges of me stealing before, and I can
They cannot charge you for the previous charges.
Yes,
they can say you have a pattern of theft, but they cannot prosecute you for the same offense 2 times.
Depends on how you did your plea.
No, it doesn't depend on anything. This is quite literally the law of the land. And when it comes to due process, he went through the system and got a legal withholding of removal. In order to remove him to El Salvador, they had to get that repealed in a court where he can testify and say this is why it shouldn't be appealed. They didn't do that. They said, again, this is why the Supreme Court attests that not only was his arrest illegal, but his deportation was illegal and his confinement in a prison were all illegal.
Okay, so you're just saying anybody driving down the road, they can just pick you up and deport you. He had to have some kind of deportation order, or they would not have picked him up.
The deportation order was illegal.
For just a simple traffic violation.
Chuck, first of all, they didn't present him with a deportation order. Secondly, even if he had a deportation order,
he had a deportation order.
The executive branch.
No, he had a deportation order.
Yes, the executive branch cannot override. The executive branch cannot override immigration court when immigration court places a withholding of removal.
He had a He only had a deportation order.
It doesn't matter.
And that's the only thing that everybody's so upset about. He had a deportation order. It was just not supposed to be sent back to El Salvador.
It doesn't matter what was supposed to happen. What did happen is illegal.
But he had a deportation order. They just screwed up and sent him to the wrong place.
It doesn't matter what was supposed to happen.
Well, you just sat there and said he had a deportation order, but it had a stay that he could not be sent to El Salvador. That is what you said.
No, he had
they screwed up.
Removal.
They screwed up and sent him to El Salvador. They even admit that. But yes, he had an order that he had to be removed from the country.
Yes, he had a withholding of removal.
To El Salvador.
Yes.
Nowhere else.
Just FYI, a withholding of removal grants you the rights to stay in the United States.
to El Salvador is where he had a
Oh, period.
No, see, you're
No,
trying to
a
have
withholding
rules
of
in.
removal
It does not say.
grants you.
It says.
Listen,
Does
listen.
does it not say removal will stay to El Salvador? Is that not what it plainly states?
When you have a withholding of removal, it is a form of
To
protection.
El Salvador.
Hold on, let me finish. Let me finish. I'll read you directly off of the Immigration Council's website, okay?
No, read off his
I'm going
paperwork.
to read you directly.
Read
what
off
a
his
withholding of
paperwork.
removal is. Okay, hold on. I want you to understand what a withholding of removal is. Okay, so a withholding of removal. Hold on, where did that section go? Withholding of removal provides a form of protection that is less certain than asylum, leaving its recipients in a sort of limbo. A person who is granted withholding of removal may never leave the United States without executing that removal order, cannot petition to bring family members to the United States, and does not gain a path to citizenship. And unlike asylum, when a family seeks withholding of removal together, a judge may grant protection to the parent while denying to the children, leading to family separations. Withholding of removal does not offer permanent protection or a path to permanent residence. If conditions improve in a person's home country, the government can revoke withholding of removal and again seek the person's deportation. But they did not do that.
You need to reread what you said. It does not guarantee. It does not guarantee protection.
A person who is granted withholding of removal may never leave the United States without executing that removal order.
But then it goes on and says, unless things change.
And things did not change in home country. They did not prove that in a court of law. They did not prove that in a court of law. They did not revoke the removal.
Oh yes, they did. The president of El Salvador just as plainly stated several times that the gang that was supposedly threatening his mommy and papa and him is not there no more.
Yeah, where is the gang now? Where are the people that were in that gang?
Well, I don't know.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. The Congress people down there now will tell you theirself he is not in CCOT.
They took him
now. Will tell you theirself he is not in CCOT.
They took him out of CCOT for a photo op. He is in CCOT.
No,
that is where he is staying. Is CCOT?
No, he is not.
Yes, he is.
Okay, but see.
Yes, he is.
Okay, but
he
see, your little fight right there just blowed up because it says unless things change. So there is no game.
If something changes, you have to have the withholding of removal revoked in a court of law, which the Donald Trump administration did not do. Hence why it says in the Supreme Court documents that his withholding of removal was still in effect. So
but
again,
yes, it does. You're reading it one way. I'm reading it another way.
I'm reading it the only way that the words legally and coherently make sense.
Because it says he's not guaranteed protection. And what you're trying to say is the Supreme Court guaranteed him protection forever, that he could never be.
I'm saying that if the government wanted to remove him, Chuck, I need you to listen. It says quite literally, a withholding of removal needs to be revoked in a court of law in order for him to be removed. It protects him from being removed from the United States without that removal being revoked. The removal was not revoked, and per the Supreme Court, when he was removed to El Salvador, that withholding of removal was still in place.
See, you've done said right then and there with talking to me just this little time we've been talking, you have read that two different ways.
No, I haven't.
You said a while ago it did not provide him protection. Now, way is it?
It doesn't offer permanent protection or permanent residency. What it does is offer you protection for as long as the withholding of removal is in place. When they say, Chuck, I need you to understand this.
Chuck, listen, look, please, I'm understanding what you're trying to say.
No,
I truly do.
Please hear me on this, Chuck.
I honestly do try to say what you're trying to say.
Hold on. When it says it doesn't offer permanent protection, that means that when you get a withholding of removal, it doesn't give you protection in perpetuity. It doesn't say that now for the rest of your life you have protection from this. What it's saying is for the entirety of the withholding of removal being in effect, you are protected.
And like you just read, it says it does not guarantee you unlimited protection,
Permanent
and if
protection.
things change, you can be deported.
And things
That's
have
what
not
it
changed
says.
because Donald
The
Trump
gang is not.
administration
The
could
gang is
prove
not there no
importantly.
more.
The gang is in CCOT where he is, Chuck.
It's not in El Salvador. They may be in CCOT.
CCOT is in El Salvador, Chuck.
Well, see, you can't have it both ways. So you're trying to twist it around. You're trying to twist it around like, oh my God, you know, he's down there being killed right now. You know, that's what they first said when he's down there. Oh, he's dead. But they've done met with him and proved that he ain't dead. You know, had their margaritas. That's the first time I ever seen a prisoner get out to go have margaritas.
Yeah, it's weird that if he's such a dangerous person and he's a gang member and he's a terrorist, why did they let him go have margaritas with a senator?
Well, see, that's what I'm wondering. Why is the senator even down there?
Sounds like he wasn't a danger, Chuck. That's what it sounds like.
Well, of course he's not going to be, because they didn't show the guards and everybody else standing around them that we can't see in the photo op. You know that as well as I do. I mean, it ain't like they let him out and let him walk down
so you're
the
saying
street.
he is in prison because there were guards there in the photos that we couldn't see? Because you told me earlier he wasn't actually in prison.
Well, they say, if you read, I've heard that they've done moved him to another facility. The president of El Salvador said they moved him to another facility.
No, they didn't. They said he's in CCOT.
When did they say that?
When he met with Trump.
Jovan, I have a $20 note in my purse right now. Can I post it to you?
Yes. Actually, you can.
You know, y'all can keep praising this man and think he's God if you want to, but you're stupid.
Who's saying the man is God? We're saying that his constitutional rights shouldn't be violated.
Illegal citizen does not have constitutional rights.
Any person, that any state shall not deprive any person, Chuck. Oh my God. I think we should add 17 to the can't read. I think that's worth 2.
That's worth me.
Why can't they read?